my name is Hydo, and welcome to the Pantheon. In this spooky month, you know, where we've got all sorts of horrible things happening, like secret lair drops, we've just discovered something that's even more terrifying than anything else that you've ever seen before. That's right, it's a British man in an orange jumper, who's talking about the Mind Flayer, or just Mind Flayer to his friends. The Shadow. 7 mana for a 9/9 horror. Legendary enchantment creature. Ooh, bit interesting. Not seen this since the Theros gods. And it isn't a creature unless you control 3 or more permanents you don't own. Okay, so we want to steal a few different things. At the beginning of your end step, exile the bottom card of each opponent's library face down. For as long as those cards remain exiled, you may look at them, you may cast a permanent spell from among them, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any colour to cast those spells. Ooh! The cool thing is, when we exile all of those spells, we can, look at them for as long as we want, but our opponents won't know what they are. So, we can flash in some maybe like big Eldrazi, something like that. Really surprise our opponents. Really, really awesome card, to be fair. And if you don't like the Stranger Things aesthetic, they are going to be printing this in sort of a weird way, it's going to be part of the list or something like that. So just wait for that if you don't like this sort of thing. Although, if you do like some things, maybe you like subscribing to me. Why don't you subscribe to my channel? I'm going to make a video for every single legendary creature ever printed, ever will be printed, forever and ever. Amen. Till I die. But let's have a look at my top 5 for the Mind Flayer. And it's not the Mind Flayer, Adam. It's Mind Flayer. And at number 5, well, 7 mana is a big investment, so we want to be able to get this card out as fast as possible. And a great way of doing that is Bubbling Muck. 1 black for a sorcery until your end of turn. Whenever a player taps a swamp for mana, it produces an additional black. So say we're on 4 mana, they're all swamps. We tap a no, I've messed it up already. We need to be on 5 swamps. You tap 1 to cast this, you make 8 mana, you can cast our commander. But this can also lead to some amazing turns where, we can really accelerate out. We've exiled a bunch of our opponent's stuff, and then we can just play it all. Fantastic card for the deck. Cryptghast, very similar. It's a 4 mana 2/2 with Extort, so you can pay either a white or a black to ping each opponent. We gain life equal to the pings. You can use this in the deck because the black and white symbol is in the rule text. It just, I don't know why it works, but you can use this in a mono black deck. Whenever you tap a swamp for mana, add black to your mana pool, in addition to the mana the land produces. Really, really nice, accelerates you massively, absolute staple in mono black. And because our commander costs so much, we really want to be playing effects like this. Then, sometimes you want to play a lot of utility lands. Well, let's make those utility lands into swamps with Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth. Legendary land, each land is a swamp in addition to its other land types. Now, this is a combo with, what's that called? I don't know, there's another land. You've never heard of it, you don't want to use that. But Nirkana Revenant, or Nirkana? I've no idea. 6 mana for a 4/4 Vampire Shade. Whenever you tap swamp for mana, add an additional black. And then you can pay a black to give it +1 swamp until end of turn. So a nice big threat on its own, but it also accelerates you magnificently. Exactly what you want when you just want to be splurging out tons and tons of spells from our commander's ability. And that brings me on to number 4. And at number 4, well, we've got things that take advantage of the fact our commander is an enchantment. And, you don't get to do this often, to be quite honest. There's not that many enchantment legendary creatures. And Extinguish All Hope is a great card for this deck. 6 mana for a sorcery, destroy all non-enchantment creatures. So if you want to go really heavily into the sort of enchantment tribal sort of thing, you could play this and just be fantastically ahead. But if you just have your commander on the field, it has become a 9/9. We've got 3 things that we, don't own or whatever. We can use this to, keep our commander around and blow up everything else. So this card, it just works fantastically for the deck. Then we've got Mana Matrix, a 6 mana artifact. Instant and enchantment spells you cast cost up to 2 less to cast. So this will make our commander cost 5. And, if we're really building into an enchantment tribal deck, with Doomweight Giants, things like that, this just goes perfectly in it. I think it's quite expensive, though. I don't actually know how much mana it is. No, money. I know how much mana it is. It's 6 mana. Money is different to mana. Altar of the Pantheon. This is an interesting one. So this is a bit of ramp that, you know, I've always thought it was pretty garbage, but it's a nice little sort of card to go in this deck, and it's a bit flavorful. So Altar of the Pantheon, 3 mana for an artifact. Your devotion to each colour and each combination of colours is increased by 1. Very nice. So if you're playing things like Grey Merchant of Asphodel, well, this is going to dome them for an additional 1. It's got a black pip in it there. And then tap, add 1 mana of any colour. If you control a god, a demigod, or a legendary enchantment, you gain 1 life. So our commander is a legendary enchantment. So we're always going to gain that 1 life if our commander's on the field. I just thought that was a nice little flavorful thing to put in there. Then there's Doomwake Giant, 5 mana for a 4/6, so could possibly be 3 mana if you've got Mana Matrix in the play. Constellation, whenever it or another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, creatures your opponents control get -1/-1 until end of turn. So a nice little mini board wipe. Potentially, if you're going to play a lot of enchantments, you're going to wipe the board completely. And it's also nice that if you play this and then play our commander, well, we're going to board wipe and then exile everything at the end step. Pretty good. And here are another couple of large enchantments. You know, if we're playing these things that reduced enchantments, well, let's play some massive enchantments. And Hedonist Trove works perfectly in the steel sort of deck. 7 mana for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, exile all cards from target opponent's graveyard. You may play land cards exile with Hedonist Trove. You may cast non-land cards exile with Hedonist Trove. You can't cast more than 1 spell this way each turn. So our commander does limit us to permanents, but, well, non-land permanents. You can't cast a land, sadly. How cool would it be if you could? Not very, to be quite honest. I'm just going in circles here. Anyway, this card, it can cast all the instants of sorceries that maybe your opponents have milled, things like that. Amazing card. So much value. I love it. Looks great in foil as well with all the gold. Then there's Grave Betrayal, 7 mana for an enchantment. Whenever a creature you don't control dies, returns to the battlefield under your control with an additional 1 counter on it at the beginning of the next end step. The creature is a black zombie in addition to its other colours and types. So a great card for stealing all of your opponent's things. Play a board wipe, ooh hee hee, I'll have everything. And then attack you with them. This card just works wonderfully in the deck. And, 7 mana, big investment, but we've got a lot of ramp and things like that in the deck. Then, for closing out games, there's Wound Reflection. 6 mana for an enchantment. At the beginning of each end step, each opponent loses life equal to the life they lost this turn. So say we swing in with our 9/9 commander, we connect, well, our opponents are actually going to be taking 18. So you can see how this spirals out of control. Great with Grey Merchant of Asphodel. That should just be your commander. Our commander also has 3 black pips, so, lots of devotion there. Which brings me on to number 3. And at number 3, we've got instant speed, or being able to cast things at instant speed. Because our commander, for balance reasons, I guess. Oh, actually, no, I've just realised why. So we play our commander, it exiles everything straight away at end step. We don't have to wait until our upkeep, so we're going to get some value out of it straight away. But why don't we be able to use those cards straight away? With things like Verdolkin Ori. 4 mana for an artifact, you can cast non-land cards as though they had flash. So all the things we've exiled on our opponent's turns, we can then cast them. Really surprise them, flash in some things. It just works wonderfully with this commander because we're generating so much advantage, we should be able to use it whenever we want. Then, a great way of doing this, Emergence Zone. A land that taps for a colour, or you could pay 1, tap it and sacrifice it. You may cast spells this turn as though they had flash. So all those things we've exiled, we can just pew 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 pew, flash them all in. Absolutely magnificent turn. We've played a Llanowar Elves, or something like that. Then, if we're going to be wanting to cast things in our opponent's turns, a card like Victory Chimes is a great piece of ramp. 3 mana for an artifact, untap it during each other player's untap step. And a player of your choice adds a colour. So this is a nice political tool. You can say, here you go. Cast that spell that you want to cast. Oh God, no, don't, not that one, Jesus. And they cast something that destroys everything you own. But this is just a great card and works perfectly with the sort of flash strategy we've got going on. Then there's Winding Canyons, a land that taps for a colours, and then pay 2 and tap it until end of turn. You can play creature cards whenever you would play instants. So all your creatures get flash, which includes all of the creatures we've exiled with our commander face down. So we can look at them and go, I'll play Arboreal Grazer. or something like that. You know, this playing at instant speed just works amazingly. Similarly to Victory Chimes, Unwinding Clock is a great card for the deck because in black we want to be playing, or we're probably going to be playing a lot of artifact ramp. So Unwinding Clock, 4 mana for an artifact, untap all artifacts you control during each other player's untap step. Pretty good. Especially if you got things like Soul Ring, so each turn you're going to be untapping this. You can use that mana for whatever you want, including flashing out your opponent's creatures, things like that. And then if we're playing things like that, and we've got a lot of money, Mana Vault is a phenomenal card. 1 mana for an artifact. Doesn't untap during its untap step. My untap step. At the beginning of your upkeep, you can pay 4. If you do, untap Mana Vault. At the beginning of your draw step, if Mana Vault is tapped, it deals 1 damage to you. And tap to add 3 colorless. So with things like Unwinding Clock on the field, we can untap this during each of our opponent's turns, and we're getting that 3 mana for free for just 1 mana investment. Amazing, amazing card. Which brings me on to number 2. And at number 2, well, what have we got? We've got other ways of stealing cards. And Darthy Voidwalker is one of the best. Double black for a creature, Darthy Rogue. 3/2, already fantastic. It's got Shadow, so you know you can get in there at Planeswalkers, and no one plays Shadow creatures, so they can't block it. If a card will be put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, instead exile it with a void counter on it. Amazing graveyard hate. And all those cards that you play, you know, off our commander's ability, well, when they die, they'll go to an opponent's graveyard, so you can exile this, and then you can tap and sacrifice this creature. Choose a exiled card an opponent owns with a void counter on it. You may play it this turn without paying its mana cost. Woo! That's pretty goddamn good. So much value. We're going to be casting massive, massive things. Massive. And this card just generates so much value. It's graveyard hate. It's stealing cards. It's a threat on the field. Amazing. Brilliant card. Similarly, we've got Gonti, Lord of Luxury. 4 mana for a 2/3 Death Toucher, Aetherborn Rogue. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of target opponent's library. Exile 1 of them face down and put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. You may look at and cast that card for as long as it remains exiled. And may spend mana as though it mana of any type to cast that spell. So fantastic card. Digs through your opponent's deck. You get the best thing you want, and coming up, so there's a spoiler for number 1 here, you're putting things on the bottom of your opponent's deck. And that means you know what you're going to be exiling, or roughly, because this is random, you know what you're going to be getting, which is fantastic with this commander. Then there's the Dead Man's Chest. 2 mana for an aura, enchant creature an opponent controls. When enchanted creature dies, exile cards equal to the power from the top of its owner's library. You may cast normal cards from among those as long as they remained exiled. And you may spend mana as though it mana of any type to cast them. So really quite niche, but we're going to have so much sort of removal. We're playing black, for God's sake. Play some board wipes. This card will net you a ton of cards. It's like drawing 10 cards if it's like on a big creature. Amazing. And then Praetor's Grasp. 3 mana for a sorcery. Search target opponent's library for a card and exile it face down. Then that player shuffles their library. You may look at and play that card for as long as it remains exiled. The great thing about this card is it can disrupt a lot of combo players. So say, you know, John's over there going, I'm going to combo off. Don't know why he speaks like that. It's a bit of a rough childhood, or a privileged childhood, I guess. He wouldn't speak like that if he was rough. But you can search for his combo piece, exile it, and he doesn't know exactly what you've exiled. So he might go to the combo and then, haha, lol, it's here. Or you could just get a Force of Will, you could get a counterspell in mono black, anything your heart desires. When that brings me to Opposition Agent, stopping your opponents from getting whatever their heart desires. 3 mana, 3/2 with Flash. You control your opponents while they're searching their libraries. Ooh, I love controlling my opponents. It just makes them so miserable, which makes me happy. Then, while an opponent is searching their library, they exile each card they find. You may play those cards for as long as you remain exiled. You may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast them. So you just get to dig for the best card in their deck whenever they search. Obviously, the searching restriction still applies, so if it says search for land, you can only get a land, but just so much value and works brilliantly with the deck. Then, quickly becoming one of my favourite cards. It's Wandering Archaic. 5 mana for a 4/4 Avatar. Whenever an opponent casts an instant or sorcery spell, you may pay. They may pay 2. If they don't, you copy that spell and you choose new targets for the copy. So you're going to be getting so much value off this. Your opponents, if they've not got the 2 mana, every counter spell you have counters. Absolutely phenomenal card. And then I actually really like Explore the Vastlands for this deck as well. 3 mana for a sorcery. Each player looks at the top 5 cards of the library, reveal a land and or an instant or sorcery card from among them, and puts that card they revealed this way into their hand, and the rest on the bottom of the library in a random order. Each player gains 3. So there we go, we're putting cards on the bottom of our opponent's library. Admittedly, we don't know what they are, but it's always a great sort of card for, digging for a land, stuff like that. Just everything about this card is phenomenal. It's just so, so good. A little too good if you ask me. And that brings me on to number 1. And these are cards that just aren't actually good, but they're good in this deck. It's Junk Troller. 4 mana for a 0/6 defender. Oh dear God, what am I doing? But you can tap to put target card from a graveyard on the bottom of its owner's library. So the cool thing about this commander is it gets the cards from the bottom of your opponent's library. And with this, anything that they've lost, any great creature they've played, anything they've milled, stuff like that, we can put it on the bottom, end step, we exile it, and then we can cast it. Manipulating your opponent's graveyards and stuff like that is just so, so cool. I love it. And the artwork on this is lovely. Such a cool card. You'd never think to put this in sort of a commander deck, I don't think, unless it's Grenzo. But this card just works incredibly for this deck. Then there's also Vessel of Endless Rest, a great little ramp piece. 3 mana for an artifact. When it enters the battlefield, put target card from a graveyard on the bottom of its owner's library. So we can do this setting up for our commander, allowing us to ramp into it because it taps for 1 mana of any colour. Or we can do it later, exile something. We can just, it just works so good. Then there's Cogwork Archivist. 6 mana for a 4/5 reach. Pay 2 and tap. Put target card from a graveyard on the bottom of its owner's library. So this is, arguably much better because it's a 4/5 and can actually attack than Junk Troll. But it does cost 6, so a bit of a hefty investment. But then we do have a lot of mana at our disposal in mono black. Then there's Rito Lantern. 2 mana for an artifact. Pay 3, put target card from a graveyard on the bottom of its owner's library. Again, just set up whatever you want to be exiled, and then you are in control. You can play whatever you want. And those are my top 5 cards for Mind Flayer. Not the Mind Flayer. What a buffoon I am. Really, really cool card. I think it's so flavorful. It just, I just really like it. It's a really cool card. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, please do like, comment, and subscribe. Maybe send a picture of me to one of your friends. With context, of course, recommending the video or something. I don't know what I'm talking about. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you soon. Bye.